Imagine living in a world where the average life expectancy is barely 40 years, a time when a small injury could lead to your death, and even the healthiest individuals were often taken by sickness, famine, or war before reaching middle age. Sounds shocking, doesn't it? But in medieval times, this was the harsh reality for most people. Before we dive into the brutal truth, if you're fascinated by dark history, untold facts, and shocking truths, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Your support helps us bring you more fascinating history documentaries like this one. Now, let's discover why life in the medieval era was so short and unforgiving. One of the primary reasons medieval people rarely lived past 40 years was the utter lack of medical knowledge. Imagine a world where doctors didn't understand the basic principles of hygiene, bacteria, or even how diseases spread. The average medieval person's health was at the mercy of the elements, poor nutrition, and frequent exposure to dangerous illnesses. The concept of germs was unknown in medieval Europe. People lived in unsanitary conditions, with waste often being thrown into the streets or left in open pits. In major cities, the streets were filled with sewage, garbage, and rotting food, creating a breeding ground for deadly bacteria. This made diseases like dysentery, cholera, and typhoid extremely common and deadly. Medieval medicine was also shockingly primitive. Doctors believed in humorism, the idea that an imbalance of bodily fluids was the cause of illness. Treatments included bloodletting, which often made things worse rather than better. Infected wounds, broken bones, and even simple fevers were often treated with herbs and potions that had little effect on improving the person's condition. And without the use of antibiotics, even the most minor infections could easily become fatal. In addition, people did not understand basic hygiene. Bathing was rare, and when it was done, it was often in dirty public bathhouses that spread diseases rather than cleaning the body. Lice, fleas, and other parasites were common, causing chronic itching and discomfort, which could lead to infections. Without knowledge of proper hygiene, people simply could not fight off the deadly diseases that surrounded them. Another deadly factor that contributed to the short lifespan of medieval people was famine and malnutrition. For most of the medieval era, the average person's diet was barely enough to sustain them, with a high reliance on grains like barley and rye, which were often of poor quality. The food people consumed was often low in nutrients and lacked the vitamins and minerals required for proper health. During bad harvests, famine could strike quickly, leaving whole communities without enough food to survive. A single bad season could mean the difference between life and death for a village. Starvation was a common cause of death, and even when food was available, it was often of poor quality. Bread made from rotten grain or mixed with sawdust, moldy vegetables, and spoiled meat were common fare for peasants. But malnutrition didn't just occur during famines. In medieval times, most people had a very limited diet, lacking essential nutrients like vitamin A, vitamin C, and iron. This led to diseases like scurvy, due to a lack of vitamin C, and rickets, a result of insufficient vitamin D and calcium, which weakened the immune system and made people more vulnerable to infections. This was especially true for children, whose stunted growth and fragile health often led to an early death. The lack of variety in the medieval diet meant that many people lacked the strength to fight off illnesses, and even if they did survive, their weakened bodies were unable to fully recover from the stresses of daily life. This made it far more likely for someone to die young, with few people ever living long enough to experience old age. Even if medieval people managed to avoid disease and famine, they were still at constant risk of death due to war and violence. The medieval period was a time of almost constant conflict, with battles, sieges, and raids a regular part of life for much of the population. Even those who didn't directly participate in wars often found themselves caught in the middle of them, as armies would march through towns, pillaging and killing innocent civilians. The violent nature of medieval life meant that even children weren't safe. During wars and sieges, civilians were often slaughtered, homes were burned to the ground, and entire villages were wiped out. The risk of death from violence was ever present, and the lack of effective policing or organized defense meant that most people had no way to protect themselves. In addition, poor sanitation was a significant factor in the high death rate. In medieval cities, the streets were crowded and filthy, with open sewage flowing through the city centers. Plague outbreaks were common, with the Black Death being one of the most devastating pandemics in history. Infected fleas and rats spread the disease across Europe, killing millions in a matter of months. Without knowledge of how diseases spread and no means of protecting themselves, medieval people were utterly helpless in the face of such epidemics. Even in times of peace, medieval people faced the constant threat of violence, disease, and the harsh conditions of their environment. The combination of inadequate health care, poor nutrition, and constant war made it extremely difficult for people to live past 40 years. Life expectancy was low, and it was rare for anyone to reach old age. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to continue exploring the shocking and untold stories from the past. Share this video with friends and family who are fascinated by the history of the medieval world and want to learn more about the hardships people endured. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.